Planning a fishing trip shouldn't feel like a full-time job. With fishingbooker.com, you can find and book the perfect fishing trip within minutes. Fishingbooker.com connects you with trusted fishing captains around the world. Booking is fast, easy, and secure, with access to verified customer reviews, loyalty rewards, and around-the-clock customer support. Everything you need to book with confidence is in one place. So head to fishingbooker.com and start planning your next fishing adventure today. Planning a fishing trip shouldn't feel like a full-time job. With fishingbooker.com, you can find and book the perfect fishing trip within minutes. Fishingbooker.com connects you with trusted fishing captains around the world. Booking is fast, easy, and secure, with access to verified customer reviews, loyalty rewards, and around-the-clock customer support. Everything you need to book with confidence is in one place. So head to fishingbooker.com and start planning your next fishing adventure today.
The All right, welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast, Kevin and Chuck. Today, well, we're going to talk about AR-15 triggers. And I've been super excited to do this episode because, I don't know, I feel like we haven't talked about guns in a while. Last week, I kind of got back into it, but it's been a while, and you know, happy to be home in my safe, happy place, right?
Mm-hmm,
so
right.
That's a good place to be. Last week, I talked a lot about upgrading your AR-15 and taking it to the next level. Taking that, I guess, you know, I talked about taking a budget AR-15 and bringing it into premium. As long as you get an acceptable barrel and whatever, it's nice to kind of have the basic parts and then be able to customize. I just hate to spend so much money on you know, a bunch of parts that I'm going to end up changing out and upgrading anyway. You know, I guess that's what's frustrating. You know, you spend $3,000 and then each part could be a little better. And then it's like, well, yeah, now I'm just throwing away that good money. So anyway.
So if we're out shopping for our AR-15 and we're looking to spend as little money as possible, and then upgrade afterwards, what are we going to be looking for? What's the bare minimum things that we want in good shape? I mean, we want a decent barrel, right?
I think the barrel is the big thing you're not changing, you know?
Right.
I mean, you know, I feel like you're spending a lot of money on that, and you may as well just buy parts and not buy a completed AR-15 if you're, you know, if that's something you're planning on replacing. I guess that's what, you know, basically you're worried about size, you know, how long the barrel is, how, you know, the twist rate. The twist rate is about like what type of bullet you're going to be shooting actually makes a difference. You know, whether it's 55 grain or 62 grain. So you think about your purpose. Typically guys are doing 55 grain for your target shooting and like that. But the green tip stuff that is more the kind of armor piercing, you know, they call it that. That's not really something, you know, that
not really accurate. Right.
Right. It's not. Yeah. It's not accurate. That's the bottom line. But so the different twist rates, things like that, you want to make sure it's dialed in basically the way you want it to be. I usually look for like a 1 in 7 twist rate, makes me happy. I usually look for something that's in 5.56. They do have 223 wild, but it's not, I don't know, which is fine to shoot 5.56, but it's not designed specifically for 5.56. And that's where you get into, you know, different things like that. But bottom line, I just posted actually to the group, there's a North Carolina company called Bear Creek Arsenal or Bear Creek Armory, one of them. Anyway, puts out a $349 AR-15. And I'm like, man, you know, that's pretty cheap.
That's real cheap.
A cheap starting. That's entry level if I ever heard, you know. And
Right.
that
But
ain't
what are we
bad, you know.
sacrificing if we're getting that? What are we giving up on? What's our weak spots there? Because if we can get a gun, get a rifle for inexpensive like that, are we going to be able to upgrade that into a good piece of equipment?
Right. Well, that's one of the things is I think you probably could. One of my coworkers actually bought a rifle from them, um, and has actually been pretty happy. He's out at the range, and he didn't upgrade anything. He just kept it the way it is, and is very content. But I will say, one of the first, I mean, selecting the right optic, I think that comes in, as a big change. Again, but you're not paying for that when you buy the AR-15. If you're buying a new rifle, it's very rare that it would come with an optic or something like that set up. But after that, as far as the physical AR-15, I do think the trigger is going to be the key to everything.
Really?
And I've never seen um, an AR-15, no matter how premium, come with better triggers than some of the ones that we've tested out. So I feel like going and putting in an aftermarket trigger is almost going to be a must.
Okay.
So that's why I wanted to jump in, and today is the magic day that we're going to dig in on that.
All right. Now
So,
you did some reviews on a few different triggers. Is that right? There are a few different companies and a
um,
few different styles.
so I have like five that are we're really kind of putting head to head. I also went out and shot and tested a Geisley two-stage trigger. Everything else that we're going to talk about is going to be a single stage trigger. I'm going to explain what that means in just a second here. I just wanted to have kind of a comparison and talk about the two and the feel and why one might want one over the other. So I kind of brought that other in. But otherwise, we're basically comparing five very similar triggers and seeing, or described similarly, although I do feel like we had a pretty different outcome with each one. So
All
they're all
right.
kind of unique. Um, so basically, I guess getting right into it, I mean, what makes an ideal trigger? Sadly, it's going to be different for everybody. So I don't think I can say this is going to be the one that's perfect for everybody.
Right.
I went out, I grabbed a couple of guys, and I had them all shooting, and we laid out, the six different lowers, and I wanted things to be the same. So we kept swapping it to actually between two different uppers, but everybody was able to shoot the same trigger with the same upper. And we had a second one to kind of keep things moving and
Right.
whatever. But and that way, so really the trigger was the focus of the change in the rifle, and that made it kind of neat. But so there's a couple things. The big thing I know I'm looking for is predictable consistency. And and for me, I mean, so believe it or not, you can get a very different trigger pull on the same trigger if it's not quality made. We were seeing a 1 to 2 pound range difference in the pull weight from cycle to cycle on mil spec triggers,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of a big deal. So the same trigger, when you pull it, it might take 5 pounds of force the first time. It might take 6.5 the next time. Might take 4.8, the next time. And it was very inconsistent. So you kind of never knew what you were going to get. Now,
Right.
to be honest, perceiving that while you're shooting it, not that big a deal, but those are some of the things that are going to kind of push you over the edge. Um, so before I even jump into that, let's talk about some of the terms. So when I'm describing things, we're all kind of on the same page, even if, maybe I'm using the words wrong, maybe, whatever people don't understand. This way we're all, talking about the same thing. So when it comes to the trigger pull, what I'm looking for is the first thing is they call it pre-travel. So when you start to pull the trigger, that first movement is called the take up. And until you pull the trigger, that free movement until you hit, they call it the wall. The wall is when you feel resistance before the hammer drops.
Mm-hmm.
So you haven't shot anything, but it right up there. The next moment, as you pull a little more, is going to be the break. And that's that crispness that everybody's, looking for, where it just drops the hammer and the bullet flies. Everything's great. Any movement after that is called over travel. And then as you release your finger, you're going to get the recoil and it's going to come back. So those basically couple of movements. There is something called creep. Creep is part of the take up. Well, so you have take up, and then with like a two-stage trigger, the next bit. So as you start to actually move the disconnector inside the AR-15, so it's not like loose trigger. It's actually moving things, but it hasn't released the hammer. That's going to be creep, that next little bit. But in single stage triggers, that's not a thing. But two stage, that's that extra bit of movement. People
Mm-hmm.
say that can be gritty or smooth, something they feel just that kind of extra resistance. But basically, what I'm always looking for is that clean break, a really quick reset as it goes from, all the way back to the original position, that reset. And that's what you're after is a clean, crisp break and a really quick reset. So, you know, that's, and then I guess the next thing maybe would be the trigger pull weight. How hard is it to actually pull it back? And so we're going to kind of dig down on all these. First thing I would say, I was told when I talked to the guys we were out shooting, they were like, "Oh, well, you got to kind of put a disclaimer of you going in with preconceived ideas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, things that you have." So let's talk about which ones, and I'll tell you what my insights are here. So we're going to compare the Rise Armament 535, the Midwest Industries Enhanced AR-15 drop-in flat trigger, the Timney 667S, the Timney Impact AR, the Geisley SSAE, which is the super enhanced,
Mm-hmm.
and the velocity trigger. So anyway, the I did have so I had owned the Rise Armament 535. I had that trigger previously, and I actually had the Geisley trigger prior to doing this. And I was sure in my mind that nothing was going to be better than the Rise Armament. I was like, this is the greatest trigger. I've never, shot anything else as crisp as, that. And anybody that I've ever talked to where I brought that gun over, they were like, that's it. Um, the Geisley, I kind of had a negative, sour view of. It's a two-stage trigger, and it's nice for the long range hunter, but as far as a combat trigger, it's not what it's designed for. And I think we're going to talk about that in a minute. But that's where I'm at on that. Now, the other thing, I did receive donated triggers and muchly appreciated from Velocity, from Timney, and Midwest Industries. They all sent triggers for us to add to our review here. And Timney, in fact, did send two triggers. And I had to say, but I assure you, the donation had no effect on my review. Like I said, I kind of in my mind was like, oh, the Rise Armament is going to be the winner here. I'm sure that's the way this is going to play out. So I definitely went in with some conceived ideas. But again, keep in mind, everything is all perspective and, how what you're really looking for and how you perceive it. There is no absolutes. All I can tell you is what things I noticed about each one and, where I came up with it. So I guess let me run down the prices quick. The Rise Armament, and I just went with MSRP. Absolutely, if you shop around, you can get some, sale prices and people who have better deals and different things. But MSRP, I figured, was an even playing field instead of where I can find the cheapest deal or whatever,
Right.
Rise Armament came in at $259, so a very expensive trigger in my book. The Velocity trigger sells for $149 to $159. The Geisley ends up coming in at $240. The Timney Impact AR was $134.99. The Timney 667S, it's actually the 75 anniversary series, was $199.99. And the Midwest Industries is $169.95. And again, these are all MSRP. I am sure, I know with other AR-15 parts, you wait for the right sale and prices can definitely change. So something to keep in mind.
All right.
Now, all right, so I know there was a little build up. Now we can get into the meat of the deal here. So I had a buddy who's a cop. I had a buddy who is a Iraq war vet, and me, a Navy vet who likes to do my little gunsmithing and am out playing with guns all the time. So I do own several AR-15s and have shot many AR-15s in different calibers and different things. So we all kind of jumped into it and gave it a good review here. So first off, let's talk about the Geisley. The Geisley trigger. What I did is I actually had everybody shoot a mil-spec AR-15 first. And so we had, this is the baseline. Let's think of a mil-spec trigger as a 5 out of 10. And I said, and then you can kind of go from there. And I said, let's, think about the take-up, the reset, the overall feel, the crisp and the crispness. And so, or I guess the feel, just kind of that feeling you get. And then at the end, I had them give an overall rating to the whole trigger. Now the guys, so the other two guys both came in, believe it or not, for take up. They both gave it a 3. Now, what I told everybody is think of it as a trigger you're reviewing for your battle rifle, for something that you're going to, go out and be your shooter for, using it on the job as a policeman over in Iraq or, in some, battle. That was the specific purpose, not for, match competition or, something like that. Because how you're looking at it is definitely going to affect it. So I have to put that disclaimer out. Geisley does not sell their trigger as a combat trigger, right? They sell a trigger for that, but they didn't want to send me anything. So, whatever. They didn't want to weigh in, and at $240, I wasn't down for buying one after I wasn't that impressed with their other triggers. So, whatever. But anyway, they both came in at a 3 for take up. I actually gave it a 6. I do understand that it's a 2-stage trigger and has a feeling, but man, if you're trying to get rounds off quick, it's gonna hurt you. It's gonna hurt you in in a battle, I guess. Next is reset. They both came in at a 3 again. I again gave it a 6. The overall feel of it, they actually bumped it up to a 6 at that point. And crispness, even because we were very, particular about this, they kind of said, it still doesn't break any easier than a mil spec trigger. They were both right at 5, and overall they gave it a 4. So
So ultimately,
not,
wouldn't spend a big chunk of money
for a combat trigger,
right?
We could dig down on. I gotta say, I'm not sure that I would even want it as my long range shooting trigger. I don't think, they always talk about you want to be surprised when the gun goes off.
Right.
And I watched a lot of videos and reviews, and Bill Geisley is the owner and creator of Geisley Triggers, was talking about it. And he was like, you get the extra safety from having that take up before you shoot. Like you're not accidentally going to pull the trigger. And to be honest, after going through all these really light triggers, there is some truth to that. But why is your finger inside the trigger guard if you're not prepared to shoot?
Right.
And, I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end here, but I mean, that's something to think about. So anyway, I don't want to just bore you guys with numbers, but next we had the velocity trigger. So the take up, about a 6, whereas it's what the one guy came in at a 6, the Iraq vet, the cop came in at a 7, and I actually gave it a 9 on take up. It was right there. The reset, it was short. There are some that are going to come in shorter. They again gave it like a 4. I was surprised. 4 and a 5. I came in at 7. The overall feel velocity trigger was an 8, and that was consistent with all three of us. Crispness, 7, and overall for the whole trigger, we came up with a 7.5 is the average there.
All right.
Don't worry, I'm gonna kind of give you a score and ranking at the end. I'm just so you see what parts came up shorter or positive on the trigger. I just wanted to run through these numbers. I know they're a little boring. I'm sorry. Work with me. Midwest Industries, take up a 8, 8.5, and a 9. The last number I give you is always mine. The reset was a 9, 9, 8. The feel was a 4, 6, and a 7 for Midwest Industries. Crispness was 7, 7.5, and a 9. Overall came in at an 8. Then we have the Rise Armament. And I remember this is the one I said that I really thought was going to come in as the winner here. And this thing is not, once compared to the other triggers, did not hold up as it did in my mind. Take up, we actually had an 8, 8.5, and a 9, which is awesome. Reset, I gave it a 2. There actually is a bit of travel coming back. And it was actually 4, 4, and 2. The overall feel after shooting the other ones ended up being a 1, a 3, and a 2. I mean, that's brutal. The Christmas, I got a 2 and an 8. I feel like the crispness was there. I had a 2, 3, and an 8. Sorry. The overall for the Rise Armament was a 4, a 6, and a 7. So I guess that'll weigh in about a 6. I believe one of the descriptors from my Iraq vet buddy there was heavy as a brick. Now,
All
there's
right.
something to that. So we'll get into that in a second. I'm going to expand on that one. Now, next one, the last two are the two Timney triggers. Now, there's the Timney AR, which the full name is the Timney Impact AR 3-pound trigger. This thing came in at a 999 for take up, 9, 9, 8.5 for reset, 9 and a 10 for feel, 9, 9, 9.5 for Christmas, and overall came in at a 9. And then last but not least, this is the more premium Timney trigger, the 667S. Now this, it's weird. One of the guys gave it actually a 3 for take up. Now here's the explanation. The guy said there's 0 take up, and that actually kind of frightened him. There's nothing. It just happens. And it was such a light trigger that it just was like, I can't even stop myself. So not take up. So don't, he was rating the take up as a 3 because he didn't like the way it was.
Because there's no take up.
Because there's too much take up. Right. So understand that. Whereas I actually, the other guy gave it an 8. I gave it a 10. Thought it was right there. The reset, everybody across the board said the reset was a 10, that they couldn't believe how little movement there was. And the feel is a 9 across the board. The Christmas, we had 8.5, 9, and 10. The overall, we're going to say 9.5. So basically, the rundown is we had the Rise Armament. Actually, we have the Geisley at the bottom. So number 6.
Ranked it at 4 there. Yeah.
That was
the 2-stage trigger.
Right. And like I said, it's not what they describe it to be as a combat trigger. So, understand that. I'm not trying to just dump on Geisley. The Rise Armament came in at number 5. I think Velocity trigger, a very solid trigger. But again, these are my takes. The Velocity trigger came in at number 4. The Midwest Industries number 3. And now for me, this is weird. We disagreed, me and some of the guys. To me, the Timney 667S came in at number 2, and the Timney AR, Impact AR, came in at number 1. And the Impact AR, I believe, is the cheapest trigger on the entire list. So that's like, damn. Now, when we were done shooting, I could not decide between the Impact AR and the Timney 667S. And after everybody left, I went out and I put 300 rounds through each one. And I actually, the way I described it to people afterward, when I've been talking to people all week about this, is the Timney 667S was actually too good. And now work with me. It just, this thing, there is no trigger. I've never in my life had a trigger that I could be as fast as I could with the 667S. This trigger was unbelievable for that. However, like the one guy said with, there's no take up and it just goes off. With shooting a couple hundred rounds, one time I actually fired, and I fired again a second shot like immediately after. So it was like a double tap, and it was unintentional. And it was that tiny bit was what pushed me over to the edge to giving it to the one step down. And that's, again, that's a preference. my Iraq buddy was like, hey, no, this is freaking exactly where I want to be. And this is the winner for me. Um, Midwest Industries came in. There's a solid overall trigger. Excellent, excellent choice. Was also, right up there. And like I said, I mean, I could have gone kind of either way on those, from the Timney to the Midwest. There was not a dramatic, change between the two. The let's see what else. The the velocity trigger. The velocity trigger is a solid overall trigger. Um, Again, it really depends. Like honestly, if you're kind of afraid of the the almost too light, like I was saying, the Midwest Industries and the Velocity are like right there behind it, where it's not quite as light. Um, I think like overall the Midwest had a little better reset. It felt just a little more where I wanted to be than the Velocity trigger did.
Mm-hmm.
The
Right.
crispness, I'll give it like a slight edge too. It just, it came out a little more. But yeah, I gotta say, I was blown away by, the Timney trigger. But I mean, I so appreciate these guys sending us triggers and giving us the opportunity to review them. And I gotta say, these guys are all light years ahead of, where a mil spec trigger is. And I absolutely think, you're moving, into a whole new level when you put any one of these triggers. Now, I will say for velocity triggers, they have a detachable base. So the actual trigger, the piece that you touch is interchangeable. And nobody looks cooler than the velocity triggers. They're pretty freaking awesome. Actually, Rise Armament looked pretty good too. But the velocity, you can just spend like 10, $15 and interchange the bottoms. And they make for a badass looking AR-15. And I got to say, they do come in, at, a very superior trigger compared to mil spec. And so, again, all these things weigh in. And hopefully you can take these things and decide. Now, let me go back. I went back into the shop after I put all these triggers in, and I checked the pull weight. The Timney Impact AR says on the trigger it comes in at 3 pounds. With my tester, it did say 3.5. Although I have read in a million different reviews and talked to people, and they basically tell me they start out a tiny bit heavy and end up, kind of getting into the groove, like settling in after a couple hundred shots. So a half pound, it was consistent. It was awesome. The 667S came in at a true 3 pounds, exactly what it said it would. Midwest Industries, 3.5 pounds is what it said, and 3.5 pounds is what it was. The Geisley, the first stage it wasn't even consistent. It was between 2.5, and then the second stage was an additional like 1 to 1.3 pounds. So a total pull weight of between 2.9 and 3.8. The velocity trigger came in at 3.45. That said it was a 3 pound trigger. Which again, that break in that fits, that's exactly what I expected. Let me see. The Rise Armament. Sorry. They brag that it's a 3.5 pound trigger. And now this is what's wacky, and I think why the guy said it was a brick compared to the others. So all the other triggers, you're talking about 3.5 pounds. The Rise Armament, mine came in at 6 pounds.
Oh yeah.
I found that shocking. I'm like, wait, what's going on? I mean, it didn't surprise me from what I felt with my finger, but it surprised me
Right.
with what they describe it as. So I was like, all right, I must have got a defective one or something must be messed up. I went to one of my buddies who has the same trigger, and I gave him my pull tester, and I said, take this home and tell me what you think. He had two lower model Rise Armament triggers and the RA-535. The lower model ones all tested right on with their pull weight. The Rise Armament was also at like 5.2 pounds or something and was significantly higher than advertised. Um, I think Rise would probably have a real good shot at moving a lot closer to the top had their pull weight been anywhere closer to where they describe it. But
Mm-hmm.
for two people, we bought them at least a year apart from each other, and we were both dramatically over pull weight. Both had been at least through 500 rounds, and I don't know. I don't know what happened there and where they come off with that. But I got to say, guys, all these triggers were a dramatic step up, though, from mil spec. Um, like I said, the velocity trigger looks great. It felt good. Midwest is an excellent, solid trigger and was right up there with Timney, just on the edge of getting into that level. Um, but the Timney triggers, like I said, it kind of depends on your feel and what you want. Like I said, you want sturdy, rugged, but nice, crisp break and excellent feel and great trigger weight. Uh, Man, there are just so many great choices out there, guys. But I got to say, for me, the Timney Impact AR, I actually just filled out the paperwork and actually got back results. I just got a short barrel rifle approved, and I had a suppressor for it. I'm just putting together that gun this weekend, and I'm excited about it. And I got to say that Timney Impact AR is going in there, but that other Timney's actually all these. I put all these triggers all day. I ripped out every mil spec trigger I had and moved these into position, and I'm excited. But yeah, I want to get out. I'm going to probably get out later today with the Timney Impact AR and throw another couple hundred rounds with it. I'm super psyched on it. So that's what I got about triggers. I know it can be a little boring, but I gotta say it's scary to spend $200 to $300 um, on a trigger. Either way, you're definitely over $100.
Right. Right.
And to
Especially.
drop that kind of money, you don't know. You don't know
Right.
what's right. You never feel. So I was hoping I could give you guys some insight, tell you what I thought, give you my take. I tried to give you, where I'm coming from on those. You can decide, maybe the reset and how fast it is. That's what I was going to say too. That Timney 667S, that thing. I have a Franklin binary trigger, and I got to say, I am almost as fast with the 667 as I am with the binary trigger. Because the binary trigger, talk about it, the guy described it as a brick. That thing in its single stage is a mil spec trigger. It's in no way any better. It almost makes me reluctant to keep it in one of my go-to guns because it's like, well, and when I realized I could be that fast with the Timney triggers, it blew me away. I got to say, with any of these triggers, you really step up your game where you realize full auto and binary, it's not even going to be a factor. You can throw as much lead as fast as you want to with any of these triggers where, it's not going to matter. If you go from I would say, definitely the top three, the Midwest, the two Timneys, but even, the velocity trigger in there. You put those head to head against, full auto. I feel like, obviously, I'm not trying to say that it's the same as full auto and whatever. I'm saying your effectiveness out on the range and back and forth. I know with any, triggers I had in the military shooting full auto, then when I go back to, single shot, I have junk. And I got to say, I would rather have a nice, crisp, quality, clean trigger than the option of full auto and junk. That's what I'm trying to, throw out there. You just want, quality. But anyway, probably those of you who are not obsessed with AR-15s probably had to suffer through a little bit on that episode. I'm sorry. But yeah, it's funny. I was just talking to somebody at work and I was like, yeah, I can be a bit of an asshole and maybe I bored you guys with that. I don't know. I was like, but if I'm not the asshole, then who would be? And the guy looked at me and he's like, you know where we work? He's like, you don't have to be the asshole. There's hundreds of them here. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, we're all assholes here. It's assholes all the way down.
Assholes all around. So, that's what I can give you. What I did do is I put together a YouTube video. I'm going to try and get it out. Hopefully by the time this airs, it should be on the Prepping Badass YouTube channel. You should head over there and subscribe anyway, because either way, if I haven't dropped it yet, I'll be dropping it in the next couple days, and you guys will be able to, make sure you get it and don't miss it. Where I am going to talk about these triggers some more and go in depth, maybe show you how pretty they are. One of the cool things with these triggers is the way they go in. They actually, you'll have the trigger and the hammer pin. You put in the two pins, and every one of them has little set screws that kind of brace the whole drop-in trigger to the bottom of the lower receiver to keep any movement. And it just really adds to that crispness. And I got to say, drop-in triggers are freaking awesome. They're not necessarily easier to put in. I know you would think, oh, it's a square box. You just drop it in. You don't have to align springs or do anything. But I felt like they almost came with as many difficulties as the other, as far as the install. And that was across the board. But I don't know. Definitely the results that you get, I'll take it all day long. These triggers are great. And, like I said, definitely the first place that I would start with upgrading my AR-15. So I really, I would recommend it all day and twice on Tuesday. So, But now, Kevin, you said you had some concerns about the world, or?
Well, I was just looking. This is just coming out. There's been some issues. Some senators have come out and said that, believe it or not, the CIA is illegally spying on Americans again. Now, I know we all as a country have been shitting on Snowden, but it seems like, we need a few more of them, those types of guys in there, because, whatever the CIA does, it's in secret. And nobody knows when they're fucking around and being assholes unless somebody speaks up. And apparently nobody ever does speak up because they're all scared of getting the skeletons out of their closet by the CIA. So
I feel like I wouldn't want to make enemies with the CIA.
Right. You don't want to disparage them in any way, and especially if you're a senator and have something to lose. So it did take a little bit of courage by these from these senators to speak out about it, but they also didn't say anything specifically about what they're talking about. So maybe they're still hedging their bets a little bit, trying not to get in too much trouble. But I think over the next few weeks, I think a little bit more of this is going to come out, and we'll see what's going on. So we'll just put a pin in that one and come back to it when we get a little bit more information. It's still kind of new information, and it's kind of just dripping out a little bit at a time. So we'll see where we go from here.
We go into a more corrupt world is where we go. That's the secret. But no, it's funny because my wife was just saying, she was like, is it even possible for you to look at the world and not think that, it's some big global conspiracy to take down the little man and whatever? And I'm like, no, I don't think it is. I mean, I'm not blind, but
yeah. I mean, take it with a grain of salt, because Chuck and I are both a little bit fucking crazy when it comes to this sort of stuff. But yeah, I don't trust these motherfuckers, and neither should you.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I will throw a small a bone to the ATF here. As much as I hate tax stamps, I think that's all bullshit, and I shouldn't have to pay to have a short rifle or a suppressor or things like that and all that. After waiting 6 or 7 months for a suppressor tax stamp and how much of a pain in the ass that was, they finally came out with e-forms. Turns out they invented something called the internet, and they just told the ATF about it. About 3 months ago, they discovered it. Now, I think they might still be using DOS to set up the program.
All right.
But because it was a little rough. I mean, it was like, there's no it was bad. All right. The website was very simple. But that said, only took 11 days from filling it out to getting a tax stamp.
Ooh.
And that's pretty fucking awesome.
That's a lot better than it was. Shit.
That's a lot better than it was. 11 days to 6 months. And that was using the new ATF forms. So I just want to put that out there. They are moving in the right direction. I do see a lot of videos on the internet where they're talking about coming after the 80% lowers. I think they are saying that in June they're going to announce that you can't build 80% lowers. They're now guns also. It's what they're talking about. I don't understand how they're going to be like, yeah, a block of aluminum is a gun. Yeah, that sounds like maybe a stretch to me, but you had the intent to take that piece of aluminum and make it a gun. Yeah,
it seems like a bit of a stretch, and it seems like they're trying to work that out, though. They get freaked out by these firearms that they can't regulate. But insight, in my opinion, anyway, is anybody with any kind of smithing skill can build a rudimentary gun in their basement. It's not
right.
The technology is out there. It's not like a secret anymore. This isn't nuclear fusion. This is it's basic mechanics, and anybody can build a shitty gun in their basement.
Yes.
Just little news for everybody out there that's concerned about banning such and such. It's not that hard to do.
That sounds about right. There's also rumors that in August, they plan on having an announcement on possibly pistol braces for AR-15s. Basically, that's when pretty much any way that you can make your AR-15 a pistol. Basically, they want to make every AR-15 either a short barrel rifle or a rifle. So if you wanted anything less than 16 inches, you're probably looking at a tax stamp. I know when I posted in the group that I got a tax stamp for a short barrel rifle, a lot of the guys were like, why aren't you just using it as a pistol? You're dumb. Well, one, pistols are a little more of a headache, but two, now I got no problems. That's all I can tell you. but that's about it. So you have questions, concerns, thoughts, want to know about triggers, where to find them. I am going to put links to the companies in the show notes. Like I said, I really appreciate Timney Triggers, Velocity Triggers, and Midwest Industries for hooking us up with some great triggers to test. They were all excellent, and we really appreciate it. I wish everybody could be right at the top, but I guess I can only have, my opinions. And like I said, everybody, they all were great. And, you do you, that's it. You find the one that's right for what you're looking for. So questions, concerns, comments, email us at preppingbadass@gmail.com. You want some Prepping Badass gear? You might want to head over to preppingbadass.com. And if you guys enjoyed the show and you like what you hear, you want to hear more of it, you can leave a review at iTunes, Spotify, or iHeartRadio, Amazon, wherever the hell it is that you're downloading this podcast. Leave us a review. Let people know what you think. I know one of the more recent ones on iTunes said that I should let Kevin talk. I guess if that's something you guys are interested in. This wasn't the episode if that was you, but, hey, maybe. Kevin, do you have anything you want to say?
No, that's it. I would love to have some more reviews, though. It helps us get up a little bit higher in the rankings, so that's definitely a plus for us. So let us know what you think. Email us at preppingbadass@gmail.com. We always reply to the emails, whether it's, might be a week or two after you send it in, but we always do eventually get around to it. Anybody that's got some ideas for some shows, let us know. We're gonna be going over a couple of new topics in the next week or so, but we still have some room. So send us any ideas you got.
With that, stay safe. We'll talk to you guys next week.
The Survival and Basic Badass Podcast is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network.
Planning a fishing trip shouldn't feel like a full-time job. With FishingBooker.com, you can find and book the perfect fishing trip within minutes. FishingBooker.com connects you with trusted fishing captains around the world. Booking is fast, easy, and secure, with access to verified customer reviews, loyalty rewards, and around-the-clock customer support. Everything you need to book with confidence is in one place. So head to FishingBooker.com and start planning your next fishing adventure today. Planning a fishing trip shouldn't feel like a full-time job. With FishingBooker.com, you can find and book the perfect fishing trip within minutes. FishingBooker.com connects you with trusted fishing captains around the world. Booking is fast, easy, and secure, with access to verified customer reviews, loyalty rewards, and around-the-clock customer support. Everything you need to book with confidence is in one place. So head to FishingBooker.com and start planning your next fishing adventure today.